Hello. Today I'm going to talk about same-sex marriage and its place in Spanish-speaking countries, specifically in Jamaica, Spain, and Costa Rica. So first, I'm just going to kind of define what same-sex marriage is. So basically, same-sex marriage is the marriage of two men to each other or two women to each other. Um, and it seems like a pretty simple concept, but historically, it's been a pretty controversial topic. And really the only kind of root that goes back to the opposition against same-sex marriage and homosexuality in general just kind of goes back to religion. And to me, that never really made sense because most religions, specifically Christianity, kind of preach love thy neighbor, accept everyone, respect other people. But time and again, we see people using their religious ideology to uphold their bigoted beliefs. So that kind of has its effects globally, and we're going to kind of talk about that today. So, homosexuality in Jamaica. Now, not only is same-sex marriage not nationally legalized and recognized in Jamaica, but also there are laws in place that criminalize homosexuality itself. Now, it's not possible to enforce a law based on identity. So what they've done is actually written these laws that outlaw homosexual acts. And America actually did this in, I believe it was around the 60s, wrote anti-sodomy laws. Those have since been repealed in America, but unfortunately they still exist in Jamaica. And they make it really dangerous for people to be gay, um, just in general. Like it really cultivates an environment of fear and almost desperation and kind of isolation that you know that you can never truly be yourself in public or else you will be arrested. That's a really scary thought. But unfortunately, that is not unique to Jamaica. So actually a lot of these Spanish-speaking Caribbean countries have laws that specifically outlaw homosexuality in one way or another. Some of these are like Barbados, Dominica, Grenada. I mean, the list goes on. It's really tragic that this these laws exist in today's age. And the only thing that can be said is we need to get this changed because this is really unacceptable. And this starts by being a good ally, being a good representative for communities, being vocal to politicians, and expressing what you morally believe should be done. So there's always steps to be taken, and I think in the case of these countries, there's a lot of steps that need to be taken to push into the right direction. Now, in Spain, there are no anti-homosexuality laws, and actually they legalized same-sex marriage in 2005. The Spanish Parliament did, and that actually made it the third country ever to nationally recognize and legalize same-sex marriage, which I think is pretty crazy that up until 2005, only two countries had ever legalized that, which is just, it's really insane to kind of think about how quickly the queer rights movement has progressed um, in contemporary times. Now, even though Spain did legalize same-sex marriage, that did not necessarily mean that the country as a whole's view of homosexuality was complete acceptance. There was actually a lot of pushback, specifically from Roman Catholic protesters who would come in into places like Madrid and stuff and let it be known that they were not happy that that was even being considered. And the law still went through, but this mindset did not go away. There's actually a case of someone named Samuel Luis who was he was beaten to death outside of a nightclub and while being shouted at with slurs and just a horrific homophobic assault. And obviously that had immediate impacts on him and his family, but it also kind of had this impact on the all queer people in Spain, because now they carry this fear of, if I if I am myself in day-to-day life, I could be persecuted for that, and that's really terrifying. Something similar actually happened in America. So as I mentioned, America legalized same-sex marriage in 2015, but in 2016, someone raided the Pulse nightclub and shot and killed dozens of people. And this had a very similar effect on our country of queer people being afraid, but it also brought with it this sense of community and kind of brought all the LGBT people in America together and kind of unite, because that's kind of the only response that could come out of this that wasn't just utter grief. So um, yeah, now I'm gonna get into the same-sex marriage in Costa Rica. It's actually happened very recently. It was instilled May of last year, which is kind of crazy that it happened so recently. Um, but even then, Costa Rica is still the first Central American country to ever legalize same-sex marriage. And Costa Rica was set to do this sooner, but that was protested again by the Catholic Church, like in Spain, and so kind of got pushed back. Then they officially proposed in 2018, and then 2 years later, it was instilled. And I kind of find Catholics doing this kind of crazy, especially because the Pope has literally publicly come out in support of same-sex civil unions. But that just kind of goes back to what I said about people just sometimes arbitrarily picking and choosing the aspects of religion that they want to kind of uphold whatever narrative they're trying to push. So now we're going to get into some questions, o unas preguntas. ¿La verdad o falso? El matrimonio homosexual es legal en España. Ser homosexual es ilegal en menos de 5 países. Y Costa Rica es el primer país de Centroamérica donde el matrimonio homosexual es legal. Por uno, es la verdad, sí. Por dos, es falso. Ser homosexual es ilegal en más de 5 países. Y por tres, es la verdad. Sí. ¿Qué letra es la correcta? 1. El matrimonio homosexual es una unión de un hombre y una mujer. Es legal en todo el mundo. Es legal en Costa Rica por solo un año. O es como una matriarca gay. Y 2. ¿Qué país tiene leyes que duelen a las personas homosexuales? ¿Costa Rica, Jamaica, los Estados Unidos o España? Y 3. ¿Cuál es el grupo al que no le gusta el matrimonio homosexual en los países hispanos? ¿El Partido Republicano? ¿Un equipo de fútbol? ¿Las homosexuales? ¿O la Iglesia Católica? Por uno, es legal en Costa Rica por un año, sí, es la verdad. Y por dos, ¿qué país tiene leyes que duelen a las personas homosexuales? Es Jamaica, sí. Y tres, el grupo es la Iglesia Católica, sí. Y finalmente, ¿por qué crees que a muchas personas no les gusta el matrimonio homosexual? ¿Crees que todo el mundo puede aceptar a las personas homosexuales en el futuro? ¿Por qué o por qué no? Gracias por escuchar. Adiós.